You're listening to Pathways and Means, a podcast that inspires and shows people how to tap into their creative spirit. We sit down with leaders and makers in every industry to talk about their process, what inspires them, and about how to build incredible things with the power of creativity. The future belongs to the creators, so come join us. This is Pathways and Means.
Hello and welcome to Pathways and Means, a show dedicated to inspiring creativity and helping you reach your goals. Here at this show, we believe in doing everything we can to help reconnect you with your creative nature and providing you all the tips, tools, and strategies we come across so that you can maximize your own creative output and potential. Among other things, we cover sound, science-backed principles of creativity and innovation in a fun and engaging way to you, an audience of creators and creatives in the making, who can use them in their own professions and throughout their lives. Over the course of the series, we'll be bringing together leaders and prominent examples of people living out these principles in order to inspire and inform how you can do the same. Without any further ado, we'll turn it over to today's guests, and we hope you enjoy.
Welcome everybody to Pathways and Means. My name's Connor England.
I'm SJ Hazim.
We're glad that you're here. Pathways and Means is a podcast all about reconnecting people with their creative spirit. SJ and I are co-founders of a little company called Creative Pathways and Means based out of Topeka, Kansas. We create education and consultancy products to help reconnect people with their creative spirit, whether it's in the arts, in business, in community building, wherever it is that you're exploring opportunities and trying to solve problems. We look to help people to lean further into that aspect of their lives, and we continue to grow every single day. To help serve us in that mission, to help people create great things for all the right reasons, we're bringing you this podcast, Pathways and Means, where we'll have the opportunity to explore conversations about creativity with people that are living at the heights of arts, business, and community. We'll have chances to take on some hard problems, some really unique opportunities as approaches on things, so that you in your own lives will have a chance to explore your own creativity and learn the tips, tools, and strategies that are going to take you forward in wherever your life will take you. So, with that in mind, we're going to go ahead and talk today a little bit about the path to creativity. Maybe creativity has been something that has been a really important part of your life, where a major part of your identity lives in the idea that I'm a creative, whether I'm an artist, a graphic designer, I'm a business builder. This is something that I consider to be something major for me. Maybe you're in that camp. Or maybe you're somebody that is looking to go deeper into their own sense of creativity because it's never been something that you feel that you've had a chance to lean into as fully as you've liked. Maybe you've had a taste, but you wonder, what could life be like if I were to lean fully into that? Well, we've got something for you too. And lastly, if you're somebody that believes that maybe creativity is just reserved for a small subset of people, that you've been priced out for whatever reason of the opportunity for you to partake in this gift that all humans have access to, if you're one of those, we've got good news and optimistic news. That's not the case. Everybody was born to create. And no matter what situation may have taken you away from that reality, we're looking to re-engage through these conversations that we have both at this company and this podcast so that we can learn how to access that as much as possible. So with that in mind, we're going to go ahead and kick things off. The first question that you might be wondering, why does creativity matter at all? And I'd like to pick your brain, SJ, as to what's creativity done for your own life? Why have you leaned so heavy into it? And why is this thing worth the squeeze in the first place?
When I think about my life and I think about, grew up in a big family and didn't have a lot, as far as resources when it comes to money and things like that. A lot of people had toys. I never even celebrated Christmas, but from the religion I was born into. But there's a saying called necessity is the mother of all invention. And it's an old proverb, but the first person who's really has gotten credit for it is Plato. But I've seen this happen in my own life. I mean, and my family was funny. We made up jingles and stuff like that for like cereal. And we had a jingle called Captain Muncho's, gotta get some. Captain Muncho's, so good. Captain Muncho's, gotta have it. Captain Muncho's, now.
Oh, that slaps. That's
so it's
good.
Funny because Nadira made that one up. But it was just, we saw advertisements, we saw different things. And we just wanted to, be able to pass some of the time in being creative. So people create when they have no other choice but to create. So it's creativity has been a part of my life for like ever.
No, I dig that. And I think everyone has had that sort of experience at one point or another where you really don't have any options except to figure it out, right? We don't have to be creative when our jobs are certain. We don't have to be creative when times are good. We don't have to be creative when everything's figured out for us and all we have to do is show up, right? It's precisely when all of a sudden that job is no longer available, when all of a sudden the economy flips upside down, when all of a sudden you find yourself in some precarious situation that you weren't ready for, the saber-tooth tiger runs up on you. Well, you got about 30 seconds to get real creative on how you're going to move through. And what a gift that we have those faculties to begin with, right? I think it's something that's so natural when we're put in those places, but in a world that is increasingly comfortable, where we feel that there's a lot of things that are certain, when in all reality, things are starting to change like crazy at a rapid pace.
Absolutely.
It's going to be more necessary than ever for us to figure out how to move through that. And that's part of what I think we're so excited about here at Pathways and Means, is just the chance to explore how creativity works. Because maybe it feels a little bit like a lost art, or maybe if people are super creative, they might not be able to put it into words, how that moves through their body, how it is that they pull off of inspiration and turn it into some beautiful creation that they're able to connect with other people, right? I think it is a little bit of a lost art, and with times being as uncertain as they're growing, and certainly where we're looking at over the next 15 years or so, I think it's probably a good time for us to figure out, all right, instead of everybody needing to be in that place of scarcity and necessity, how might we be able to access our creativity beforehand, right? More proactively than reactively. So we've operated with a handful of our clients and groups that we've worked with, just sort of preparing for the future a little bit. So for those that might be watching that don't necessarily know where it is that we're going, what are some of the estimates looking like for, say, 2030 in terms of the economy, what the world's going to look like? Where are we going?
Well, it's looking like massive job loss. I mean, upwards of 10 million and above. I mean, from some of the studies that came from MIT and other places, well-respected institutions. And what we're talking about here isn't to sit here and, it's like fire and brimstone, all this other type of stuff that's happening. But what it is to be prepared, because, CPM was founded, in order to come beside people and organizations so they can learn about and tap into their natural human processes in order to reach unparalleled creative excellence, consistency, and confidence.
Right. It's amazing how the exact same things that are making the world a lot more certain and a lot more comfortable are probably going to swing to the other end. You can't go to a McDonald's anymore without having to punch out at a kiosk instead of actually...
Or a Kroger's. I mean, it's like, I'm coming here to buy groceries. I didn't come here to work.
Right.
But I actually got to scan my stuff and everything else, so they've gotten rid of so much, and we see it everywhere.
Right. Like, technology is a blessing. It could be a curse, but computers don't necessarily think one way or another. They just know that there's a problem to solve and that they're going to solve it as efficiently as possible, which is great for us. It's less work. But what does that mean? It means that all of those jobs that you don't have to think much about, if a robot or AI can do it better, it's gonna be possible that you're going to end up losing your job accordingly. Well, there's one thing in particular that a lot of studies are starting to show that computers are really bad at. That's thinking outside the box. Really, a computer sets a box, right? It's got a certain problem that it's meant to solve, and then it does it better than anyone else. But anytime you have to have that divergent thinking, there's an opportunity. So who knows, right? AI and self-driving cars and all of this other tech that we know is on the horizon can be scary for a lot of people that feel that things are certain and they're comfortable, because there's a chance that computers are going to come for you. But you know what that means? It means for the creatives, for the people that are willing to live in that unknown and come up with new and novel and different solutions to problems that we don't even know we have yet. Whole sea of opportunity, right? Individuals now have the ability to change entire industries. Like we're talking, two brothers and a handful of lines of code create Stripe, which was one of the fastest $2 billion companies that's ever been done. And they were sitting in their home with a laptop, right?
Yeah, it's amazing. I mean, even like with people like Steve Jobs did, for his industry, Mark Zuckerberg. I mean, just there's so many people who have made huge changes with the way that things are going. And technology just sped things up, tremendously. Remember a long time ago, there was the Pony Express? These guys got on horseback.
Yeah.
Delivering mail, telegrams. Now we got emails. You could send something from here to Timbuktu in a matter of minutes. So
well, and even on the art side, right? You got people like Nipsey Hussle. You got people like Billie Eilish's brother that are literally recording things onto GarageBand on their phone and are turning it into a Grammy level track, right?
Yeah, that's crazy.
The barrier to entry is lower than it's ever been before. But that also means that there's a greater responsibility for us to use that tech to solve problems. And here's the thing, right? For people that are creative, and everybody's got that opportunity, even if they're not leaning into it right now. The difference is going to be those that can think creatively, consistently.
Absolutely.
None of these one-hit wonders. We're talking, how do you tap into your natural human creative process again and again and again? I say this all the time, but your favorite Grammy artist gets writer's block.
Absolutely.
The difference between you and the neighborhood rapper is like they how to continue to make hit after hit after hit, because inspiration, motivation, creation, connection, you got your process down. And man, what if just 10% more of the population had that, right? How different the world would look.
And I think of the content creators almost like, the pioneers of the new brave world, the same people that were going across the country looking for gold. Because when you put yourself in a position of a content creator, you're putting yourself out there. There's a lot of people, who aren't willing to come from behind the curtain or from out from the shadows to be recognized, because it's scary to stand out as an individual. People are used to being that brick in the wall, but content creators, they're getting out here. They're in the streets. They're talking about real life stories. And these are the type of things that inspire others. Good art always inspires. It's the reason we're doing a podcast. We've been inspired by other people who have shared their experiences and stories. And the thing is, there's so much that you get from a story. So these content creators, hand clap for y'all.
I think there's so many different ways for people to step into their own creative process. Like you and me, we riff on things in a lot of similar ways. We also can take two very different approaches to our creativity, and both of them are useful in different ways. And when they come together, it's bonkers too. But whether you're someone that's building out content, whether you're somebody that is maybe business minded and you're thinking, how do I solve this problem and how do I do that at scale? Creative approaches to problems that exist in the world that you could build a little something around. Like that's a form of creativity too. And you got a lot of people that are sitting inside of corporations that don't necessarily think of themselves as creatives, when in reality, like the world is hungry for the innovators, and every meaningful product, whether it's a Shure mic or it's some slick fashion design.
Did you see that?
Oh, it's so clean. So fresh and so clean. It's, that's a form of creativity. Coming up with creative ways for you to connect with people. Because in a world that is more surrounded with social media than ever, it's harder than ever it is to make a meaningful human connection. Ton of opportunity for creativity and connections and relationships and networking. And also just visionaries, right? Not everybody's got the ability to see what the future can be and then build it out real time, right? It's funny how creativity, something that prides itself on not putting things in a box, sometimes can box in certain things where they think that this is what it means to be a creative. It's just the arts.
Yeah, I see that a lot. It's even like I splash a whole lot of colors on the wall, and that means I'm being creative. And I like what you talked about with visionaries. To me, that's just people painting the future with their imagination on how they would like things to be. I always say it is what it is, but but from talking to you for some years and everything, it's like, but what could it be? And I think that's where the visionaries and things come in. It's like, what the world could be if we leaned into that instead of just accepting things for what they are.
Right. So even just teasing that out for a second, right? One of the things that we have here at Creative Pathways and Means, the parent company behind the podcast, is a creativity model. It's a science-backed, super effective, super easy to use model to think about the creative process, the human creative process. First step is inspiration, which is the positive belief in a potential future. And not everybody is naturally thinking in those ways. It can take a little bit of work, but once you learn it part by part, how do I look at a situation? What would make it positive? What do I think is potentially possible? It's future-based. You can lean into those different things and you get a vision for it, right? So someone that might not be moving in those ways can amplify their ability to have a vision for something that's better, and that will help them to be more inspired, to inspire others, and to even just set your aim and your targets to know where it is to go, right?
Yeah. I like what you, a positive belief in a potential future. And it's like all four of those keywords have to be present. The belief has to be positive, and the potential has to be within the future of different things. So as you tease that out and look at that, I mean, it's such of a big deal. And Nipsey Hussle, he felt, and this is a quote I see all the time, he felt that inspiring somebody is the highest pursuit of mankind. Like, that's the best thing you can do for someone, is inspire them. And I mean, there's so many things that can be solved with inspiration. Sometimes we just stay stuck, because I don't believe that a lot of times we're looking in the right places to be inspired. Sometimes we think we got to come with the best line the world has ever heard, the best bar, or the best idea, or the best response. And sometimes the best response could be like,
No, I feel that. I know that inspiration comes from just about everywhere, and if there's something that brings that to mind, I come back to sort of your story. So the creativity model and a lot of its roots and how it came about. There was a lot of your story that helped inform that, and just goes to show that inspiration can hit you in a moment and it can change your life forever. So for maybe people that are getting to meet you for the first time, you mind sharing a little bit about how you came onto the scene?
Yeah, well, absolutely. So I'll rewind all the way back to the first time I ever felt inspiration. And I didn't know what it was at the time. Like I said, I got 4 older brothers, 3 sisters. And like I said, we came up with modest beginnings, and didn't have a whole lot and had to be creative. My brothers and sisters were involved in sports and very good in sports and everything. I mean, at the end of the day, just about everybody in my family got a scholarship for some type of sport. Parents never forced anything on us, but I just wasn't inspired at a young age, probably because I had a speech impediment. I was extremely small. Like my senior year, and not my senior year, my freshman year in high school, I was 5 foot, 100 pounds. So imagine how small I was in the 6th grade or the 4th grade or whatever. I was just little and looked so much younger than I was, and nobody really took me serious. Nobody listened to me or anything. So I didn't feel like I had much to contribute to the world, to where I had thoughts of not even, I'm not going to say suicide, because I wasn't thinking about killing myself. I was just thinking about the world would probably be better off without me. And that's about as far as it went. Until I witnessed breakdancing on a video, and my whole life changed at that point. I mean, I felt fire inside of me, to where it was like, fire.
Just like
I
that.
just felt just like that. Ohio players, just like that. And woo, woo, woo. So what happened was, because I was, like I said before, I was a shy child, but the way I was inspired by breakdancing outweighed my fear of, any types of haterism or anything else. It was so important to me to lean in to breakdancing and everything, that the fear just kind of went away. So that was when I was inspired. But how the creativity model came about from that is when I realized I was inspired, it motivated me to create dance moves and then share them to see if they connected with the people who saw them. And if they did, it inspired us both. And then I continued on that process. So the way that whole creativity model came about, it took time. First of all, my brother Hakeem saw the model, started helping me out with it, trying to see if it was true. And then later on, I hooked up with yourself, Connor England, and this man did crazy work to where he's trying to find out if it's true. So then you started coming up with some of these definitions and some of these frameworks, and we actually built it into a business. And so that is the creativity model story. So that's how things came about. That's how I felt inspiration. And yeah.
No, it's killer, man. What a gift it is when inspiration hits, and how important it is for you to be ready once that moment happens.
And it did so much for my confidence. That's one thing that I didn't talk about. And my speech impediment, for me being in that special speech class from 1st to the 3rd grade. Once I started repeating these lyrics, started getting comfortable dancing in front of people and things like that, man, I mean, it changed my life, and self-esteem can do a whole lot for you.
No matter where you're at, man, quick little wins and just getting a taste for what it can do. I remember when we first moved to Topeka, you talked about here a little while ago, right? How, what was the quote with necessity in it?
Necessity is the mother of invention.
So that's it. My dad was in the service. My mom was a nurse, was going through her nursing degree actually. And so we were living off like an E4 salary. I was somewhere between 6 and 8 years old, and my mom had another one on the way. So we're living real thin, right? And necessity began to be something that was creeping up on my family. And my mom and my dad, I knew that they always had this fire to figure out how they were going to move forward, how we were going to get stable, how we were going to get set, how we were going to have some of those opportunities. And sometimes that means you have to get creative. So there was this little house out in a neighborhood in Topeka called Montera. Some people call it Monterable. I don't feel.
I'm hip to Montera.
I don't feel one way or another about it now, but people had their feelings, and part of this story might help explain why. So my parents were looking on the market, just trying to find a place to settle down, and they found this duplex that was a foreclosure because of arson. Right? Someone had taken like some chemicals and had tried to basically line the foundation that way that when they hit the match, everything was going to torch, right? But the problem was it ended up smudging instead. It just left a bunch of like chemical gunk around it. So they were just trying to flip it for like $5,000 or $10,000 when everything else was closer to like that 40 to 60 around. Right. So my dad jumped on it and he bought the house outright for like $5,000 to $10,000. And it wasn't until I started watching younger home videos of us as a kid, understanding the situation that we were in, because it's like I remember being in that space, and you don't know when you're a kid, but just how necessity in those situations caused them, instead of for them to shrink away from it, they leaned into it. They leaned into that necessity to come up with creative solutions in order to move themselves forward, and they saved up money. It got my mom through college. It got us to that next place where we were able to move up into a different neighborhood, have a little bit more comfort, a little bit more time to plug into ourselves. And I think I just, honestly, learning to think there's both when necessity and curiosity come together and you believe that there's a way through, just absolutely wild things will happen. And so all throughout sort of my upbringing, I just learned to look at problems from a creative standpoint, like, hey, not coming up with a solution isn't an option. So let's sit down and let's barrel through on it. And I think that problem solving capacity, just that way of looking at the world, I was always drawn to those sorts of things. So I did like 7 or 8 years of debate where we would take all sorts of different problems and we would do our best to understand possible solutions and lean into them and just test stuff. You'd have to be on the positive side and the negative side, and it almost didn't matter what your belief was. You had to problem solve to work it through. And I kind of got just this knack and this interest to where I got really, really good at solving problems, building organizations that could work on the problems together, whether it was a fraternity, a social organization. And I got really interested in going into politics. Turns out no one's going to save the world when you're 25. So I ended up stepping out of that space. I grew a little bit disenfranchised with it. I ended up instead going down the business route because it was like the whole purpose of business is to solve problems for others. There's necessity, other people have needs, and there's the chance to be creative and to find a way. And clearly there are rewards for people that are willing to think creatively in those spaces, right? We know that the future belongs to the creators. Every product, service, movement, etc., that people are participating in came out of the ideas and the sweat equity of someone else pushing into that. And man, I wanted to be in the stream. I wanted to be in the culture. And so I spent a lot of time leaning into it, right? Out of Washburn University, my alma mater, there's a trophy in the School of Business, right? And I don't think it's going to go down until the next set goes down, but we were just, it was an international competition where people in like 60 different countries were plugging away in business strategy and business planning so that we could come up with novel and different solutions towards different problems. And what we ended up putting down ended up beating out Japan, Ireland's MIT,
Wow.
the Dublin Institute of Technology. And it was kind of like the politics thing. It was a lot of ideation. It was a lot of kind of cutting our teeth. But there were a lot of people that decided to support us and to spur that creativity. And man, I think one of the best blessings in my life was just the amount of opportunity that people have been willing to hand me to try to flex those creative muscles, because you need some at-bats. And I've been blessed
Absolutely.
on, not only my hard work, but also just the grace and the gifts that all sorts of people, even, our partnership, to be able to practice and to flex those muscles. And, my way of thinking in the world is behavioral economics, right? Economics is why people make the decisions they do. It's not just how you spend your cash. It's why you pick the relationship partners that you do. It's why you prefer one color of car to another. It's all of those choices. And then there's this thing called the human psychology. It's not rational. It doesn't know why it does something. It gets very filled with feelings. And somewhere in between there, right, we're making choices in the world. And I've always just been super interested in that. And the more and more I've spent time in the research, the more and more we've built this thing, the more that I think we're starting to see, and correct me if I'm wrong, but Creative Pathways and Means, or CPM for short, this little organization that we're building, I think what we're starting to find is that people are naturally creative in the way that they solve things. And when, for whatever reason, whether it's an act of trauma, whether it's somebody getting shut down, we're seeing that a lot of behavioral health problems, whether it's depression, anxiety, a lot of it is being separated from these natural ways of moving. And when we're able to participate in helping bring them back to their natural creative selves, a lot of those things start to get better.
Yeah, one thing a lot of people underestimate or don't even take into account is what inspiration does to you. I mean, to your psyche, to everything. I mean, the energy that will come when you're inspired, the expanded vision that will come. I mean, and when you're excited, when you're enthused, other people are enthused. It's an energy. I mean, there's certain people that come around who bring a certain type of energy that you just want to tap into. Then there's others who bring a whole different type of energy that you definitely don't want to tap into and everything like that. So I just believe that we are inspired by others and things like that. And it's one of the things that inspired us to create CPM and turn it into a business. And thanks to some of your background, I mean, that international business strategy stuff, I mean, that's amazing. I mean, beating out 60 different, countries.
Yeah, and at the same time, Mr. Humble Pie over here, sharing the stage with Lil Wayne and with Tech and with everybody. What's crazy, right, is I don't think it matters if you're an Elon Musk who may be processing the death of his child, if you are an artist that is writing bars to be able to talk about the pain and the things that you've gone through. Creativity can be an outlet to approach the difficult things in the world in a way that's more approachable, that's more healing. And I think although like our stories and our approaches are different, it's still that same creative spark that when we lean into, like, sure, 80% of how we approach things might be different, right? But that 20% in the middle, well, we're on the same path, right? We're using the same means in order to take creativity and to push it out into something that is not only healing, but is empowering. And we're starting to do some pretty cool work with other organizations. Groups like Jobs for America's Graduates is one that immediately comes to mind, but it's just, the more that we're going to be able to help people lean into their creativity, whether it is explicitly economic, right? You're trying to come up with the next new innovation and you need your teams and everybody to understand how does that happen. We can help with that. If you're looking to work through some difficult behavioral challenges and you're looking for sound science-backed behavioral science that can not only amplify your creativity but can help you with some challenges that you're going through, we're starting to experience some of that too. And it's, for whatever reason, creativity has blessed us both. And if you got the gift, the best thing you can do is to give it away to others that might not have that chance.
They say if you don't use your gift, you lose your gift. I mean, it's true. One thing, I know you mentioned some of the people I've shared some stages with. I definitely have. But with that is where the edutainment comes into play. And, big into kids literacy, did a lot of stuff, consultancy for the Boys and Girls Club, revamped their whole kids literacy program. Shawnee County Public Library, Read and Learns, even had a little puppet, to where turning books into raps and stuff like that. But I think it's very important to use your gift. And a lot of times, you might not know what your gift is, but to give you a tool, anything that really upsets you, or there's some different things that really just excite you, your gift could be in one of those, because you're supposed to be able to solve some issues. So if there's something that always irks your nerves, maybe it's so hard to get volunteers, or I wish that this park wasn't dirty and everything like that. Well, instead of just wishing it wasn't dirty, maybe just take your own self down there, maybe some of your family members, some friends, and clean it up.
Right. I think a lot of times, man, it's just people need to, if you haven't had any exposure to it, you haven't seen it, you haven't moved in it, your family didn't move in these ways, your social circles didn't move in these ways, it's like you were built for this. You were built from the ground up to be creative, to think creatively, and to come up with novel solutions that make not just your world better, but others. We can't account for everybody's particular situation, but here at CPM, we're going through this process of slowly but surely ironing out in a science-based, but also, as engaging and effective as a way as we know how to do, whether it's at our live events, if it's if it's packaged in a courseware and it's documents that we're giving away, right? I just want to provide the tools, even for us. Like half the times when we're building something, we're building it for us.
Yeah.
Because we're looking for ways to learn things faster. We're looking for ways to resolve maybe some traumas that both we've gone through and that we might go through in the future. How do we tap into inspiration when we don't feel about it, right? These are products and services that we're in the process of building up slowly but surely. I'm so excited for what we have in the pipeline, and for the opportunity to be able to share that with the world slowly but surely as we continue to grow. But for right now, man, just super excited to have the chance to kick off this podcast, both for us to really explore some of those conversations in depth. I know that today we've kind of glanced over, and there are all sorts of different pieces, any one point of the model, all sorts of different creative topics that we've heard through the grapevine or we've experienced ourselves, for us to be able to push into, for us to have a space to engage in those different topics, and really are just super excited to hear from anybody else that may be going into their own creativity or is looking to, where we might be able to help them as well. It's a process. It's not 100% figured out. There might not be a guarantee that we ever get there. But the path to a creative life, I know, speaking from experience, and I know you have too, been in some pretty dark places, been in some pretty uninspiring places, because sometimes you have to go through it to get to it.
You got to go through it to get to it. I'm just going to do this because there's been some things, as far as we've been talking about a little bit of artistry. I'm going to spit something. And this is what I would do when I went to some of the youth centers and even some of the high schools. And I just paint this picture of like a drive-by gone wrong. So this is me being creative through music. Tire squeal, still pops off, there's shots coming. Glocks busting, leaving the block and the drop something. Whole block running, they know when the cops coming. First 48 for the Jakes, the clock's running. No snitching, won't turn over, they not budging. They know them killers dip with a stick, never missing a day. Fully modified, clipping the K, the big bully if you get in the way. They on the block like gridding for pay. In the kitchen with they palms itching, raw chickens cooking coke, flipping the yay. Hitting corners in the Chevrolet, dirty D's for cheese on dirty blocks, the American way. One time hitting the block and double time thugs ditching they rock. 3-time felons hitting the gas and 4-way stop signs they smashing. Ghetto athletes dipping and dashing and whatnot. Catch $150, a buck shot. No rabbit foot, this where your luck stop. Reality Jack. Block episodes, we know when they must stop. Around the way, girl caught astray at the bus stop. Seen her life fade, laid dead on the street curb. Now she resurrected by a tat and a t-shirt. So just a little something, to where, man, words matter, actions matter. Because the world was created, spoken to existence. You can speak things into existence, but follow through. So
that was icky. That was so good.
Thank you, sir.
Off the cuff, right?
Off the cuff.
Wow, that was something. Well, I'm excited to take off on this journey with you. We're gonna see where it goes. For anyone that's out there that's interested in leaning into their own creativity, we'll hope that you'll go down the path with us. Please feel free to go ahead and leave us a like, a comment, a subscribe, and a share if you feel so inclined. We're going to be pushing on this journey for ourselves and for those other creators that are alongside with us. And we hope that we can go the distance together. It's not always going to be easy. Sometimes we're leaning into our creativity out of a place of necessity, out of a place of trauma. And that's okay, right? That's what this gift is here for, is to help us not just passively sit here in the world, but for us to actively work to co-create it together. We're looking forward to doing the same with you, and we'll see you here in the next episode.
And where a pathway doesn't exist, you create one.
Later, y'all.
Thanks so much for listening. We hope you found today's episode informative and inspiring. If you liked what you heard and you want to hear more, be sure to subscribe to Pathways and Means wherever you get your podcasts. If you want to learn more about CPM and how to grow creatively into the future, visit creativepathwaysandmeans.com, or you can find us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, LinkedIn, and TikTok, where we post daily content and connect and engage with creators like you. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time.